recording. So we're good. We got audio. We got this video. We got that video. We got everything. We got all the things.
Do you want to count down to start what you're actually gonna?
Clap track.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, do a clap on your side.
All right.
Just you. Hello, welcome to Rulebooks and Accessories.
Where three nerds play games
And tell you what we think about them.
Welcome to episode 1. Subscribe on YouTube and on your podcast app.
and make sure that you tell all your friends.
Absolutely. So, this is the first episode of this thing. Who are we and why are you watching this podcast? Hopefully, you're still watching and you watch all the way to the end.
Yeah, if they stopped already, it was pretty quick.
That happens. People click. They say, I don't like these fools. I'm just going to move on to the next one. But maybe we're good fools. We should have some kind of secret.
Well, they're not going to know how well we rate the game if they don't listen to all of it.
That's true.
That's true.
You won't know anything about Marvel Champions if you don't wait all the way till the end. So, stay tuned for that. So, what is this thing? What is this podcast?
Well, I guess we'll start with some introductions, right? My name is Rich Morrow. I have been in the gaming community for a little over 2 decades now, 26 years roughly. A little bit of RPG in there, a lot of board game, a little bit of card game, mostly miniature tabletop.
Yeah.
Been doing it for a long time, super into it, super pumped to talk about that and some other great games.
What was the first game you remember playing?
Warhammer Fantasy.
Wow.
Ooh,
That's a
doesn't
heavy.
even have the same name anymore.
That's a heavy hitter,
Yep.
right? The first
It was a game that does not exist. As a matter of fact, the owner of our local game store is the one that gave me that demo.
Wow.
Goodness.
That's pretty amazing. Scott,
Kept on giving.
tell me about yourself. What was your first game?
I'm Scott Jensen, a.k.a. many things now.
The legend.
My first game is that's kind of hard to remember. I'm mostly on the tabletop role playing games. I then do some card games here and there. I usually play Magic a lot until I get bored of it. Then I try out a new card game until I run that into the dirt, and then I go back with that.
Yeah.
But definitely come from the standpoint of playing old pen and paper role playing games and some miniature stuff here and there, which I'm really excited to learn and to get to play more of that. I would say I've been started probably about as long as Rich has with playing games at all, any kind of seriousness. The first game that I played, besides like dominoes and stuff like that.
Right, yeah. I'm thinking like your first like hobbyist tabletop game. Otherwise, my first game would be Candyland, but I already know what I'm gonna pick, and it's not Candyland.
So I can tell you that I remember little boy Rich playing Hero Clicks with Scott. He was so excited. He had just got his Sentinel.
Man, I wish I still could say I still had that Sentinel, but I don't. I might have one of its hands.
They're like
the hands
35
came off way too easy.
They're like $35 on Amazon, bro.
Damn, I could get them back.
You could get like 12 of them.
Yeah, so I want to say if I looked back, miniature game, and it was around the same time I played Mage Knight a lot.
Oh, cool.
And Magic and Vampire the Masquerade, a lot of World of Darkness stuff like Werewolf the Apocalypse and stuff like that. So if you want to go back to around that time when I first moved down here, I don't remember. It was mostly just all comics before that. So that's where all my money went. But
Gotcha.
yeah, so I would say those three.
So I'm Bo McCoy, also legendary.
Very.
Not really.
Mythic rare. That's what you are.
My first game was Magic the Gathering, but Magic the Gathering in the 90s, and I was like 12 or 13 years old. I'm not exactly sure, but my older cousin showed me how to play the game. But here's the thing: is we grew up in a house that wasn't allowed. Like it was like
Demonic, man.
height of satanic panic.
Absolutely.
We weren't allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering.
Ooh.
And so we had to hide. Like we had like hiding places around the house.
Oh
where
man,
we'd
you have
hid
like
our cards.
floorboards that you kick up and hide the stuff under the floorboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, wow.
And also Legend of the Five Rings. My cousin and I would buy the original Legend of the Five Rings.
OG, man.
And
yeah,
we had
CCG, not LCG.
We had no idea the rules of that game. We had no idea how to play it. We tried our best and we just couldn't comprehend it, so we made up our own rules. And we played our own version of Legend of the Five Rings for years.
Gorgeous game though. Gorgeous game.
It
Still.
is. Yeah. I'd like to get some of those cards too from the original set. But
Who knows where this will take us?
So that was my that would be a lot of fun. That was my foray into gaming, and that's the purpose of this podcast is each week we're going to introduce a new game the game could be new to all of us. More than likely, someone in the group has played it before and is introducing it to the other two of us. And then we're going to play the game and talk about it.
Yeah.
Give a review of some kind.
Yeah, this is not going to be a we teach you how to play. That's everywhere. If you want that, there's plenty of places to look. This is going to be the three of us are going to play this game together. One of us is going to teach the other two. We're going to play it. We're going to give you our honest thoughts and opinions. We're going to give you a rating at the end, let you know if we recommend it, if we think you should maybe skip on this one, pass it, or definitely try it before you buy it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's sage advice. Yes.
So episode 1, we're going to talk about Marvel Champions, a game very near and dear to my heart. I'm a huge fan of the Marvel Universe. So, Bo, what is Marvel Champions?
Oh, God, I'm supposed to ask you these questions.
No, man, come on.
Marvel
This
Champions.
is a team effort here, Bo. None of us are carrying the other two.
It's an LCG by Fantasy Flight Games.
What does LCG mean, by the way?
It means, I don't know.
This wasn't like a quiz show.
It's a living card
game. I really thought you knew that one, bro.
No, it's a living card game. I would have known if you hadn't asked.
Yeah.
It's a living card game, and which basically that's different than a TCG in that like you're not like buying boosters or anything like that. You can just go buy all the products that they release like off the shelf in a package. And it's a deck building game where you play as a hero, so Spider-Man, Iron Man, you also play as their alter ego. So the card flips and you have both sides of the card. And there's certain actions you can take on one side of the card, certain actions you can take on the other side of the card. And you're playing against an encounter deck. And the encounter deck is typically a villain. And the encounter deck is geared towards that villain and is thematically, like the rules for the deck is like thematically attached to the lore of that villain.
Right. So I think that it's also important to mention this is a completely cooperative game. It is you can play it by yourself or you can play with up to 3 other friends. So you can have up to 4 people going on this. And the game does skill and difficulty based on that, which I think is a really cool addition, right? Like obviously, if the game stays the same at 4 versus 1 player, it's not going to be very challenging with 4 people. So it's a good mechanic to have that the game is going to scale accordingly. I'd also like to mention the game did release in 2019 with a core set with 5 heroes and 3 villains in it. And currently up to date, we have the core box. We have 3 campaign expansions, which we'll touch on a little later.
Yeah.
And we have 18 hero packs.
Yeah.
The cool thing about the hero packs in Marvel Champions is you're on the fence. You kind of want to play. You got some friends playing. So you walk into Empire Games. You see myself, Bo, and Scott playing a game. And you're like, hey, can I join in? All you got to do is walk over to the shelf, pick up your favorite hero. That comes with a pre-constructed deck for that hero and some extra cards for deck building options later.
Yeah, the cool thing, too, is with just that starter box, you have everything you need to build 4 decks. So in previous LCGs that have come out, you had to buy 2 starter boxes if you really wanted to build the decks you wanted.
Full of everything,
but they did a really good job with this one in having ample enough cards that you can build the decks that you want. There's still people out there that buy 2 boxes, but like they're like the hardcore
extremists or completionists. I'm sorry.
I tried to keep up with 2 of everything for a while just because my wife likes to play with me. But, it got so there was this point in time where Melanie was like, well, I want to play Black Widow Justice. And I'm like, well, I want to play Iron Man Justice.
Right, yeah.
And the conundrum is I'm like, I need that card. But she's like, I need it. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I go out, I buy another core box, the whole first wave of hero packs. And then like every time something comes out, I'm buying 2 of it. And I'm like, this is old. So I finally just sold the second set to a friend.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I definitely... I bought 2 boxes of previous LCGs, but this one I haven't felt the need to. But I do feel the need, like if there's a certain deck that I want to build, like I know, for example, I can't remember the title right now, but there's some Justice cards that I want from the Doctor Strange deck, but I want it for my Black Widow deck. And so I'm probably going to buy the Doctor Strange deck just for those 3 cards. Now, that being said, I've got a whole nother deck that I can build now. Or whenever friends come over and I introduce them to the game, they can play Doctor Strange. But there is that aspect of, having to buy one set just because you want a card from that set.
Yeah, and I think that the campaign boxes are just adding a whole nother layer of play. So your typical encounter in this game is you're going to have, let's say, your Iron Man deck or your Scarlet Witch deck, and your friend's going to come with his Black Panther deck. And you're all right, we're going to fight Rhino tonight, right? So you'll get the Rhino encounter out, and then you'll pick from it's a huge list at this point, but there was like 7 or 8 side encounters that slot into that deck. Yeah. And then each character has cards that go into the villain deck, as well as some standard encounter cards that are going to go in that deck, and that's how you construct the deck. The campaigns are built on a different system where your games are linked. There's a gameplay mechanic linking game to game, and your deck changes over the course of it. So for people looking for a little more longevity out of the game, the campaigns are a great way to go.
The campaign thing is not something that I had tried. I've mostly played this game solo. And so go into that a little bit more detail. So how does it work? Whenever you start the campaign, you kind of decide together with the people that you're going to be going through the campaign with, like what kind of decks you want to build, and then you use those decks through the whole thing?
Yeah, so the way it works, right? When we just show up to play, generally I'll have like 4 decks built, one for each aspect.
Yeah.
And I'll go, what are you guys going to play? And I'll just kind of slot into the team. When you're doing a campaign, sitting down as a group and building your decks together is very important because you really need to cover all your bases, because the campaigns are like a whole nother level of hard for this game. So, example, the first campaign, the Rise of Hydra, it's a Red Skull-centric campaign. The first mission, and it's a story. You get a comic with it that's telling you what's going on. The first mission is you're fighting Skull and Crossbones, and he's breaking into a sword facility trying to steal tech. So, like, the mechanic there is he has this deck that's a separate deck from the encounter deck or your deck called the Experimental Weapons deck. And on triggers, the top card of that deck will get flipped into play with him. Well, once those cards flip into play, they're in every mission for the rest of the campaign. Like, he stole the weapon, it's in Hydra's hands, they have it.
That's wild.
Once you finish the Skull and Crossbones encounter, you go to Absorbing Man. So Absorbing Man says every time a full round is played, you put a delay counter on him. Those delay counters come up in every other mission. He's trying to hold you up from catching up to the guys that stole the stuff they stole.
Wow.
So it's a really cool story, and it can get harder or easier depending on how you go. And the level of winning you do in each scenario also grants you benefits. Like, you'll get cards to go in your deck or to start in play for your next game and stuff. So it's really fun.
That's really cool. I'd only ever played like sort of the solo encounter thing, which is a really neat thing in itself, where you can just pick it up and, you know, you get an encounter deck, you get a hero deck, and you start playing. And they actually have in the rule book that if anybody wants to join you, like if you're at a local game store and someone's watching you play, they can just jump in. They can just jump in as a hero and play.
Just showed up. Spider-Man just swung.
Right, he just swung into the scene and helped out. Yeah,
man.
But it's really nice that it also has this kind of campaign mode thing added to it as well. It's really great to have that versatility. So let's talk about the game that we played.
Yeah, let's do that. So we decided, and this was Scott's first game ever.
Man.
And this was Bo's first game playing with other people, and this was my umpteenth billionth game.
It wasn't my first playing with other people, but it was my first time playing with other people where I didn't have to teach. Like, the other times I played, I was introducing it to somebody, which we were teaching Scott to play, but you were handling most of that.
Yeah, so when we first talked about it, I remember saying, like, well, I want to build a deck with a hero I haven't played, because I don't want to take one of my like really fine-tuned decks into like a Rhino, because that's who we fall, and Rhino's considered the learn the game villain.
Man.
And I didn't want to just beat Rhino while you two guys were like, man, this game is neat.
Yeah.
You know. So I built a Vision deck because he has some complex mechanics to him, and I built him in Protection, which is not my favorite aspect to play, but kind of just a well-rounded deck to do a little bit of everything. So I wasn't just thrashing the villain or removing all the threat from the scheme, just kind of supporting where need be.
Right, yeah. So the funny thing about this scenario is you and I, having played the game before, and also everybody learns on Rhino, we thought we're going to smash Rhino into this bank wall, right?
What a breeze this is going to be.
And just burn right through it. And then we'll pick up another game. We'll really play then. We ended up playing Rhino for like 2 hours.
Unbelievable.
And barely won.
Yeah, it was good old Agatha Harkness that sealed the deal for us.
She jumped in, and it was her all along.
Yeah, it should probably be pointed out. Don't let your imagination exceed your expectations for this game.
Mm-hmm.
We went into this game with Black Widow, who could probably fight Rhino okay, but then Vision and Scarlet Witch, who would just destroy him, right?
It's like some alpha
dead.
level Avengers.
Yeah, he's just dead on sight. And like, dude almost beat us.
Yeah. Yeah, it
was great. It was very thematic in the fact of it was 1-2 punches back and forth, and then he's like, "Oh, but wait," and something else happens, and then like my nemesis pops up and just wreaks havoc, and then she pops up on Bo and wreaks some havoc, and it was thematic and very back and forth.
Yeah,
so.
I actually think the nemesis is what made it so hard for us, because we kind of I had a slow start. I had a hard time building mine. That was the first time I'd ever played Black Widow. But I had a hard time building up. And then once I kind of got a board state, your nemesis came in and kind of ruined everything for us.
And it bounces off of me and then goes back and comes out. And yeah, it was
So how did you feel playing your deck Scarlet Witch?
Well, having gone into it on her and not having played the game in any other way.
Yeah, yeah.
I do take my many years of comics are probably my very first nerdy love, as far back as it goes.
Yeah.
So I took it from that standpoint, and I kind of felt like I was playing Wanda, how Wanda would act in that particular situation.
Okay, yeah.
And I felt like just the way when Rich and I put that deck together, running off of the idea of having her kind of like this scrying in Magic, where you cycle through really quick. So you're drawing and ditching a lot of stuff to get as many options as you can up in front of you. To also not be afraid to psychotically, as Wanda has been in the past, just throwing a bunch of stuff out as quick as you can, and then hoping. And it came down to that at the end. It was the last hand was like, if we play this certain way, it could take Rhino down. If we don't, then he's probably going to take us down.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was fun being a person coming into it out of nowhere, being able to run into it from a character standpoint, and also, as much as I love RPGs, running it from that direction.
Yeah,
and she played aggression, so she was Wanda after something real bad just happened to her. So
yeah, I was actually going to tell you, Scott. I sat down the other night, as I told you guys. I try to keep like one for each aspect built, and I was like, you know what? That us doing that for this inspired me to take my decks apart and build 4 new decks with 4 characters I had not really touched. So I actually built a Scarlet Witch deck in Justice, and it is insane. It is literally. I drew like 20 cards in one turn. It was nuts.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to have to check that list out.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
I think Justice is the best aspect of the game.
I think Justice is necessary. So why don't we branch off here? Why don't we talk about deck building? So when you want to build a deck for Marvel Champions, the first thing you got to decide is what hero you're going to play, right? There's a list of them. You can decide by, man, I just really like this character, so I want to play him, to I really like the way this card plays, just on the abilities on the hero and the stats on the hero. Either way, pick your hero. When you pick your hero, you're going to take 15 cards that go with that hero. And these have to go in the deck no matter what. So if you pick Spider-Man, you've got 15 cards that are themed around that character that have to go in your deck. And they kind of emphasize the play style. So like in our example, we'll take Spider-Man, right? So I'm going to play Spider-Man. Spider-Man has 2 attack, 1 thwart, and 3 defense. So that tells me like he's a pretty good defender, right? The text on his card on Spider-Man's side says when the villain attacks you, you can draw a card. So that tells me like the villain's attacking me, I'm drawing cards, I got a high defense. On his other side is Peter Parker, you get a free resource.
Right.
Which is just good no matter what in any card game ever. Free resources is money.
Oh yeah.
So the next thing you got to decide is what aspects you want to build your deck into. And there are some characters that build differently than others. A couple like Spider-Woman comes to mind. Adam Warlock comes to mind. But you have to pick one aspect. There are 4 aspects in the game. They're color-coded. So you got yellow, which is Justice. Justice is all about thwart. And what thwart is that one of the win conditions for the villain is that he's got a scheme he's trying to accomplish. It's what he's trying to do, right? So like with Rhino, he's trying to rob this bank. So anytime that you're not in superhero form and he's not fighting you, he's putting thwart on this scheme. And if it gets to the maximum number for the players, you lose.
Right.
So yellow is all about removing that. It's about, investigating, figuring out the plot, getting rid of that, and just keeping the team alive. Then you got red. Red is aggression. Where justice is about keeping the thing from happening, aggression is about beating the villain to a pulp and throwing him in jail, right?
Yeah.
It is just punch him. Did that not work? I'll punch him.
Right. Is he dead yet? I'll punch him.
Most importantly, it's about looking at him dead in his face and saying, "You took everything from me."
So then you got green, which is protection. Protection is all about boosting your defense, healing your allies, taking the hits for the team, and supporting. Right,
Yeah.
so people that like to play healers in D&D like playing protection.
Yeah. I think of it as like a tank. Like it's like a support tank in World of Warcraft or something.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last one you have is leadership, which is blue. Leadership's main play is all about allies and boosting allies and buffing allies, putting attachment on allies, readying allies. And it's kind of like the jack of all trades color. Like blue is probably just the best out of the box.
Yeah, probably because you have more options because all the allies do different things. and can be useful for different things.
Right. You playing a Hulk deck that has no Thwart, so you can't play solo and win.
Yeah.
Play him in blue. Now you can play some allies and thwart some,
Right.
thread off the scheme and actually potentially win, right? So in addition to your aspect cards, you have basic cards. Now basic cards are your colorless. You can play them in any deck. There are going to be limits on some cards, 1 per deck, 2 per deck. But for the most part, the rule is 3 copies of a card in a deck.
I love the idea that the way the decks work in the game for the encounter deck and for the hero deck, that they're like so just like creative in the way that they make a card game with, cardboard cutouts with pictures on them, but they make it feel like it like somehow fits into the world of whatever character you're playing. Like you were talking about the extra resource with Peter Parker. That's like, cause like he's able to like invent things, whenever he's Peter Parker. Your Scarlet Witch deck, it's sort of like she's using her ability to be able to like, pull in more options and make decisions,
Warp reality
yeah.
to make different things happen.
Yeah, exactly. They do a really good job of working those themes and like how that all works.
Yeah, I would definitely say the game is very thematic, right?
Yeah.
Thematic is the word of the day with this game. It's very, very thematic. When you play Iron Man, this is my favorite example to give, right? Because Iron
Man's great. Yeah.
Iron Man is awesome. He comes in the starter box. So when you start as Iron Man, you have a hand size, both in alter ego and a hero form. And one of the mechanics of the game is, in addition to playing cards and using actions, you're allowed to flip your persona card once per turn. Mm-hmm. So you're either going to be an alter ego or hero. And you have to be in a certain form to do certain cards, right?
Right.
So it's a balancing act. So as Tony Stark, your hand size is 6. You have an ability that lets you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and, put 1 in your hand and 2 in your discard. But when you flip to Iron Man, his hand size is 1.
Yeah.
Plus 1 for each tech upgrade you control.
Right.
So when you play as Iron Man, you spend the first half of the game like, guys, I'm building the suit. I'm building the suit, guys. And then when you get that suit built and you show up, you just hard carry the rest of the game. And it's super. That's Iron Man. He's like, man, he got drunk last night, and he's trying to get this gauntlet to work, and then he shows up and just wrecks Rhino, right?
Yeah. Probably my favorite encounter deck is the Green Goblin encounter. You'll have to remind me how it works.
So basically, you start out the game fighting Norman Osborn.
That's right.
And he has a card that on one side is Criminal Enterprise.
Yeah.
And you put counters on that. And when you deal damage to Norman Osborn, instead of doing damage, you remove counters from Criminal Enterprise.
Right.
When it gets to 0 counters, it flips to State of Madness. And then you flip Norman Osborn to Green Goblin. And I think he does damage to everybody when he flips. And that's your opportunity to you basically, you mess with his criminal empire. He flips out and tries to kill you for a while. Yeah. And he eventually calms down and goes back to trying to fund the criminal enterprise. It's super fun.
And you have to kill him. You have to knock down his hit points. And so you need him to flip. But you judge when's the best opportunity to do it. And so there's times where you're like, well, I don't know if I want to deal damage to Norman Osborn because I'm not ready for it to flip just yet, It's a really smart mechanic and very thematic to the story.
Yeah, I would have to say that my personal favorite encounter is Kang the Conqueror.
Okay.
Obviously, I know Scott hasn't played it. I don't know if you've played it, Bo.
I have it, but I haven't played it.
Okay, so it's really fun because what happens is you fight Kang. Kang shows up, the Avengers go at him. Once you get to stage 2, he flings you all through time. You go to your own play area in your own instance of time with your own version of Kang to fight.
Wow.
And once you beat him, you can join up with another player. And it's really fun because
cool.
It's funny because the protection guy's like, you guys, I don't kill things. I'm defense here.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really fun encounter.
It's really smart. They're so creative with how they do it. I think that's the most impressive thing about this game is how creative they are in putting those together.
So why don't we touch on some of the things we don't agree on for this game?
Okay.
All right. So, Bo, you had mentioned, and you'll have to remind me, you didn't like how some characters felt shoehorned into things.
Yeah. So the flip side of what I was just praising the game for, the way they make those themes work with the heroes is they make you use those 14 or 15 cards. In like Spider-Man always has those 15 cards. And so those 15 cards, every Spider-Man deck will have those, and you're only building a deck of like 40. So that means every Spider-Man deck has half the cards are the same. And so there's really only so many other choices for the remainder of those cards. And so I feel like that kind of shoehorns you into only doing a certain type of deck with Spider-Man. Now, that being said, obviously you have the different aspects. But I feel like if you were going to build a Spider-Man Justice deck, it's going to look very similar to every other Spider-Man Justice deck.
Well, so I have to agree to disagree on this topic. I think there was a point in time where that was 100% true because the game continues to diversify and have more things come out. The card pool has only grown.
Yeah.
And there was a while where I swore by certain cards in certain aspects, and I don't do that anymore. There's so many cards to choose from. Like, I'm not going to play the same 3 allies in every deck because, now there are characters that are going to work better as allies in other decks. So I think there's a little more diversity to it now. And I've been collecting it since it came out. And I've bought everything as it's come out.
Yeah.
So, and I've played pretty consistently with it and seen a lot of that. I know, like we talked about with Black Widow, you feel like she's really shoehorned in the preparation mechanic.
Yeah.
And while I agree with that, I also say, her core 15 comes with some prep cards. So you don't really have to go that route. You could play her. I wouldn't play her protection personally, but you could. You could find a way to build her into that and have her work, and just trigger off the prep cards that she comes with.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely see that. But I really think that this is sure, it's a deck building game, but I think the real draw to this game is the thematic nature of it, and I think the fun part is playing different characters. Where it's not like other card games or other deck building games where you're trying to build an engine for your deck and the whole focus is on, can I get this engine to work? This game is really more about can I have fun playing as She-Hulk,
Right. And one of the cool mechanics there, right? The teamwork aspect is kind of off the charts for this one because if I'm in my turn and you have an Avengers Mansion, for the viewers, that means he could tap it and draw a card. I could request that Bo use his Avengers Mansion on me to let me draw a card. So, when we played, I know every turn we would kind of talk through it as a group before any of us did anything. It's how do we want to proceed this round? What's the plan? What's the problem? What do we need to address?
I really think I really think that's another place that it shines. Where you really have fun with this game is playing with more than one person. You can play it solo. That is a feature, though. I don't think we've mentioned that so far, but you can play solo, which is awesome. That was one of the first things that drew me into the games because you can't tell you how many times I've invested in a card game and then nobody in our town plays it.
Keyforge.
Whereas, so I love the idea that I could just buy this game and then even if nobody else plays it, me and my cat will play it.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing I do. When I'm gearing up for a campaign, I'll do a test run on my deck, and then I'll fight hard mode Rhino, and I'm if my deck can beat hard mode Rhino, it's got something to it, right? Yeah. And if it can't, then I'm back to the drawing board.
Yeah,
we'll test that on poor Rhino.
He deserves it. Did you see what he was wearing?
He does. That suit's a little ridiculous.
Was there anything you didn't like about the game, Scott? If you had to nitpick.
The only nitpick that I would really throw out, it's not even really a nitpick, is that I don't think just Joe off the street, if they popped in, could just pick it up, having never played any kind of deck building game before or any kind of card game before. I think it would be a little difficult from just somebody who doesn't. But I mean, that's the the hardest thing to do is to make a game that's super ground level accessible.
What's funny about that is I think we do take certain things for granted. This is one of the easiest games to teach someone that has played this type of game
Absolutely,
before.
And that's why I had jumped onto it in one game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do also feel like I could give somebody the box and say, go watch a couple videos on how to play this. And then by the time I see them the next week, they can know how to play
With some guidance, it's easy to learn. Yeah.
With guidance, I think you could jump through it. Now, if I were to buy this to go home and play it by myself, I might get discouraged playing it alone. I'm not sure.
I love it.
At the same, now I 100% because, we'll get to the spoiler alert on how I thought about it later on. But that would be the only nitpick I have. I mean, the thematic aspects of it is what sells it to me in its own right. And the fact that personally, when it comes down to comics, I'm not as much for Marvel as I am for DC. I don't give a damn. I wish that this engine would be put on every different comic book company that exists, so I can play this with Hellboy.
They should do like they did. So
I can play this with and
like how UFS was you could just find a UFS for whatever franchise.
And I wish there was some way that could happen. But I do
They have them on
say-
Tabletop Simulator. There's a bunch of like bootleg ones that people made.
A bootleg Abe Sapien.
Yeah,
I want to see Abe Sapien punching Rhino in the face. I definitely do.
So to what Scott said, I'd like to add, I think it depends on what content you're giving said person. I do think, coming from a background of gaming, that if you just hand someone a core box of this game and they read the rules, like the characters that come in there, while no less fun than some of the more complex characters, are a little easier to understand. Like we did kind of we gave Scott one of the more complicated characters in the game off the bat.
That's true.
Which why the hell not? Right.
That is true. And another thing is too is the core box comes with a like learned playbook that basically walks you through setting up and playing your first game. Which that helps out a lot. And 2 pre-constructed decks. So you open up the pack, you pull out your Captain Marvel deck, you set up your Rhino, and this book walks you through the whole thing. Yeah.
I think we'll try Captain Marvel.
The thing that I was pointing out though, that's like we take it for granted, and I think anybody listening to this podcast they're not going to have this problem. But just whenever you're teaching your spouses to play the game, consider this. Like teaching my wife to play, she didn't know what exhausted was. And I was like, it's like tapping in Magic. What's tapping? You know what I mean? Like there's certain concepts that's just like if all you've ever played is War and Solitaire, you don't really understand what exhausting is, But that's easy to pick up.
Yeah. They're exhausted to summon sickness. They're asleep. That's all it is. They got to get their energy back. Then they wake up the next turn. So you can definitely do that.
Yeah. So why don't we get into how we rate this game, guys?
All right, so we're going to go with a rating system from 1 to 10. There are going to be no half points because I don't want to deal with that kind of math, okay? I don't want to deal with any of this. Well, I'm kind of on this side. I'm kind of...
Yeah.
Obviously, 1 being the lowest it can get and 10 being the highest.
You have to pick a side.
You got to pick. And if you're 5 in the middle, then, I don't know. I'm definitely not going to rate this a 5, so I don't worry about that.
And I think what we do is we take our 3 scores and we're going to average them together, and that's going to give you, like... our rating, and then we'll talk a little bit about it, right? Like if we think you should go out and buy this game right now, like literally stop what you're doing.
Well, finish this first.
Finish this episode. No, play it in your car. Drive to the store. Buy this.
And then when you get to the store, say, I'm buying this because of this.
Yeah, right. Because of these 3 guys.
Or we'll tell you if the game is so bad that you should go to the store and tell them you're going to file a complaint because they carry it in stock.
Either way, you're driving. Yeah.
You're just driving. But listen to us while you're driving there.
Everything's covered.
So who wants to go first?
Yeah, I think you do.
Okay. I scored this pretty highly because I think it's everything we just mentioned. I don't want to just keep saying thematic over and over again, but that's like really is the key word to this game. It's like it feels like you're a superhero. But also I would say that it's a fun party game. It's fun like whenever people are over and you just whip out some hero decks and beat up Rhino or beat up whoever the enemy is. It's a lot of fun. It's a game that like doesn't take itself so seriously. It's not competitive at all. It's cooperative.
It's great. Another great part of it.
Yeah, but yet it is like expansive, and you can become like it's easy to learn, and you just can become a lot better at it as you learn more and more about the game and about the interactions. So I score it pretty highly. I would say a 7 out of 10.
It's pretty high.
Scott, you want to go next?
Okay, initially when we played it last week before last, we played it, and we were talking about it. I scored it differently than I'm going to score it now, and I think I said that after time to think about it, I was going to score it differently.
Yeah.
So everybody gets that benefit of that. The next day bought the starter. And Scarlet Witch, because I had to somehow redo that, which there's going to be a couple more I have to buy to completely remake that Scarlet Witch. And then my buddy John up at Kazon Cards sent me Star-Lord because from what I've heard about Star-Lord, he's real aggravating. So I've got to go for the Elf Ball of Marvel Champions and play him. So I will surprisingly give this an 8. Yeah, initially it was lower than that, but given time to think about it, it only made me want to get. And I want to F and buy all of it, and I'm trying to stop myself from jumping in. The extremist / completist in me is wanting to get every last bit of it, and I can't wait for more mutants.
Yes. I I hope that more mutants come out. I'm sure that
we got two.
Yeah.
And they're Magneto's kids, so I
want
need
to
him to
see
show
more
up.
mutants. Mutants. I want to see more mutants.
Well, I mean, I would think that's definitely coming.
Yeah.
From what I understand, they're like 3 years in advance on this game. So we knew that a Sinister Six box was coming before the Thanos campaign came out. So,
Wow.
So I'm sure we'll see something pretty soon for that, actually. So
Where you put it?
here's the thing. I've spent 2 decades of my life playing games with people. Mm-hmm. I love games. It's what I do. We're sitting in my game room right now, right? There's a lot of stuff everywhere because I love games.
Yes.
Most of the games that I love require me to fight my friends. And that's a big part of just my gaming history is competitive events, Warhammer. Spent a lot of time playing War Machine. So, like, that's fun. But every once in a while, I just want to sit down with my bros and beat up Rhino. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm also a huge Marvel buff. I've got several Marvel tattoos. Like, I love the characters. I love the universe. I grew up reading comics when I was a kid. So the theme for me is a really big deal. That said, the game can be... I'm trying to think of how to word this. The game can seem like much at times. Like you'll get into an encounter and you'll be like, man, I can't figure out how to beat this guy. Like the other Green Goblin's a perfect example. Mutagen form is just coming at you so hard and so fast. It feels unbeatable at times.
Yeah.
But that's a plus for me because that appeals to my competitive side. I'm like, well, how can I change my deck and figure this out?
Yeah.
How can I sit down? So for me, this game's really got it all. I'm going to give it an 8 as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with your complaint / plus. Like, I think it's the fact that it's challenging is a lot of fun. I remember the first time I started playing the game, there would be a lot of times where I would like think I'm ahead, and then I realized that like, oh, he's gonna scheme, and that means I lose the game, and there's nothing I can. Oh, but I think it's encouraging. It makes me want to keep playing. It would feel too cheap if I bought the box and then was able to beat every encounter. You know what I mean? Like, it should be difficult, and I should have to become better to get through it.
Right. And we didn't even mention the scaling difficulty. The game, every scenario comes with a built-in like hard mode.
Yeah.
So
I got a confession. I've never played any hard modes.
Oh man, they're
not bold enough to do it yet.
So Sunday, I'm actually playing through the entire Rise of Hydra campaign with a buddy on hard mode. We're going Scarlet Witch Quicksilver all the way.
You guys are hardcore, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be brutal. It's gonna be fun. So me and Melanie play tested the other night against the first mission.
Yeah,
and we blew through. She was playing Valkyrie Aggression, and I was playing Scarlet Witch Justice.
Yeah,
and we blew through like phase. Cause you start at phase 2 in hard mode, and they go to phase 3 instead of 1 to 2.
Right.
We blew through like the 28 health this dude had like in 2 turns, and then like almost had him dead to rights. And then I didn't want to say anything because like Melanie was like really enjoying her deck, and she flipped alter ego, and I was an alter ego. I was like, well, we just lose here. and old Skull and Crossbones was like, well, you fell into my clutches. So and we thread it out, It was just kind of play test, but it's nice to lose every once in a while.
Yeah.
So before we give our total score, right? Let us know in the comments below if you want us to play through a campaign, if you want me to drag Bo and Scott through the trenches with me in a hard mode campaign, and we'll come on and talk about it. We'll give you guys a play-by-play.
Yeah,
it'll be fun and exhausting for me.
Let's say that here too. So we won't do this every episode, but let's take this opportunity to be in the first episode. If you want to see us do like actual plays, like gameplays of these games and post them on YouTube, we're not exactly set up to do that right now, but we'll figure it out. We'll work on it. We can make it happen. And put that in the comments. If there's a game that you want to see us do, put that in the comments. Give us advice. Use this episode comment section as your way of giving us advice on what you want the next episodes to be like.
Just tell us what you want us to do. That's what we're here for.
That'll be fun.
So, guys, how do we feel about Marvel Champions?
Well, apparently, collectively, we feel that it scores a 7.66. 6 6 6 6 6 6 6 6 7. So it's a pretty good score.
I'd like to add.
Call it an 8.
I personally highly recommend this game. If you've played LCGs before and you're looking for something fun, cooperative to play with your family, this is a great one. If you're a fan of the Marvel universe, like this is probably a solid 9, honestly. Like if you love this universe, this game is for you. If you like LCGs and the universe, this game's a 10. Just go buy it.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Just get in your car, drive to Empire Games, Anderson, South Carolina, buy it right now. They're probably closed. I don't even know what time it is, but go buy it right now.
No, not closed yet. So get on down there. If you're hearing this somehow now, which is impossible, but in the future.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Do we want to say what game we're doing next week?
Yeah, we can. So
Yeah.
we're going to cover Cool Mini or Not's A Song of Ice and Fire, which will be Bo's first
Oh God,
miniature game.
I haven't even read the
Ever.
rule book yet.
It's
I don't
cool.
even- I don't even know
I
how to
am.
play
Look
this
at
game.
me. I am the rule book.
I am the accessory. Bo's the and.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for checking out the first episode of Rulebooks and Accessories. We really appreciate you. Remember, comment down below. We'll be sure to respond. We want to have that conversation with you. We love talking to people about games, especially games we love. And we look forward to hearing from all you guys and seeing where this goes. We really think it could grow into be something cool. The gaming community loves this stuff. I know we do, and that's why we talked about it, and we decided to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to try to get some good coverage for you guys. We really appreciate it. Remember, comment, like, subscribe. From Rulebooks and Accessories, we'll talk to you next time.
Perfect.
Where anything can happen.